Hey there again, welcome back. So for this video, we will now be configuring the player movement and the player tag. So if you can still remember the module about on collision, on trigger, enter, we need a tag so that whenever that game object collides with a player with tag, it will perform a certain action. So let's do first the easy task. So player, select the player, the catcher. Let's just rename this the player. So rename player, player, player catcher, or let's say player. Now the player, let's tag it and make a new tag. Add tag. I want the string value player all uppercase or all capitalized. Caps lock player one. Since this we are doing the level 1 of this game, I want to label the player as player 1. So save and go back to the inspector panel of player and click the tag and player 1. So we will be using that later on. For now, we'll just configure it as tag as player 1. And next, we're gonna have to make or do the script for the player movement. For this time, let's just head first to the edit and let us grab project settings and drag this one here. So in the project settings, we will be here we'll be seeing the input manager. So project settings and click input manager and select this button axis. So this is a pre-program or built-in Unity function wherein if you access horizontal, this will allow you to perform an action, a movement action. Say for example, you want your player to move to the right, so the positive button will be the right. This refers to the right key of your keyboard, and the left key of the keyboard. And alternatively, you can also have the A and D. Yeah, so horizontal, this means or pertains to the x-axis. Let's head over to the scene. The x-axis, and that is a horizontal movement or horizontal line. And the vertical, we have the name vertical and the negative or the positive button. Positive, since we're going up, as you can remember in your math subject back in high school, the coordinate plane. So the positive value is on the y. Positive value on y is in this direction, and the positive value for x is in this direction. So that's why in the positive button, the up key, and the negative button is down up. And alternatively, you can use the W key and letter S or the S key. You can also modify this one depending on your preference. In my game, in the letter catch game that I have made, I made or I customized the vertical and the horizontal function that allowed me to use or make my allowed my learners use Xbox 360 game controller or the gamepad Xbox 360. But for this, we're just gonna use um, the keyboard keys or the keys in the keyboard. You get it. Anyway, so this is the input manager. This is customizable depending on your preferences. So let's head back to the scene and select the player and select add component. Oh no, let's not do that. Let's head to our scripts folder so that we are organized. So in the scripts folder, right click, create, and select C# script and name it player move. No, simply player move. And wait for it to compile. Don't do anything. Don't disturb the editor or the game engine once when it is compiling a script. Okay, and let's click the player and drag the script here and open it in our Visual Studio. Okay, so let's have first the declaration of the variable. So for a player or for an object to move, for an order, in order for an object to move, we need to add speed. So let's declare it as public so that we can edit in the inspector. Public float value or float in data type and player move speed, and let's have a default of 10, or let's say 8f, and we will be declaring another float value, and I want it to be accessible in the inspector panel but not in other scripts. I just want to so we will put serialized field, then not serialized field only. Then let's have float max x, the max x value, and another which is not accessible in inspector panel, float move x. So for the meantime, these are all the variables that we need in order to make the player move. So in the start function, we're not gonna write anything in the start, so we can delete that. And the update function, we're going to call a function player move. And since we haven't yet made a function player move, that's why it's showing us an error. So we're gonna have to make a function void. We're not gonna return anything. Player move. Player move. Which should. Okay. Where is it? Have I? Anyway, void. Oh no. So yeah, void player move. What seems to be the error? They're written the same. Anyway, maybe we should write first the function before we include it in the update event function. So let's copy this one and V and okay. Why is it like that? Let's erase this one. Oh, okay. I know. I see. We're writing the class name, which we shouldn't do. So let's just rename our function void move player, and we're gonna call this one in the update. So here we are now going to access the input in the input manager. Okay, it's compiling. Okay, wait. Anyway, we're gonna access this one horizontal, since the player or the catcher will only move at this axis, or in the x-axis, left and right direction. The player is not gonna move upward or downward. That's why we're just going to access the horizontal. So to do that, let's head back to our code. Control S, and we're gonna have to use this one, the movex. We're gonna store something in it. So movex, it's a float value. So equals, to access the horizontal built-in function in Unity, we're gonna have to go first input dot get axis and open and close parenthesis, and we're gonna include here this axis name. So the axis name here, this one name horizontal. So we should write this on our code the same as this horizontal. So let's put in the quotation mark horizontal, and we're gonna multiply it by the value of the player move speed, which is 8 value. So player move speed, and times make it smoothly move time dot delta time. So in every frame rate, um, this time dot delta time will be called. So the movement in the x-axis horizontal will be multiplied by the amount of the player move speed, which is 8 by default, and to give it a smooth movement, we have to include the time dot delta time. And then let's now use the transform component. Since we're gonna move its position, transform that position plus equals, oh no, we're not gonna increment it, equals new vector 3, and since we're just going to move in the x value, we're gonna drag this value or this variable wherein we store the movement for the horizontal axis. So we're just gonna copy this one, move x in the x, and 0 and 0, 0 on the y and 0 on the z. So let's see if we can make the player move. Let's head back to our game or the game engine. Okay, so let's hit the play ball up. We should disable first these 3 game objects. We won't be needing it for the meantime. Okay, let's disable this this one. We're gonna disable the winner, portal, and the game over. Let's disable this first. Then we have here the player. Okay, and it's not moving. Let's add the a value of, let's say, 10. Okay, I don't know why it's player move. Okay, we should be incrementing it back. Plus equals move player. Okay, and there we have it. So the error in our code here at the transform that position, wherein we should be incrementing it since we're going to move it constantly. So before we just put the equal, wherein we just put the value transform that position equal to the get axis horizontal axis. Okay, so we should be incrementing this, so plus equal, so meaning transform that position plus equal the new vector 3 and move x wherein we store the axis value. So whenever we move that, it will be incremented into this value to transform that position of our player. However, we have a problem. Since we can move the player, there should be a limitation, because if we don't put any limitation to it, you'll see it can pass through the screen of your computer or of your game, and we don't want that for our learners. So you will have there yeah. And so this game object should have a limited or a clamp value, wherein if this game object reaches that position, it will be clamped or it will be locked. It will not be able to pass through. So to do that, we're gonna use a function called mathf or math function in the Unity. So we're gonna store again another value of a type of float, since all of these are float value. So float should be in float, integer should be in integer, string should be in string. But there are some exceptions wherein integer can be converted into string. Anyway, we're not gonna implementing that. So let's store a float type value, float max pose, meaning this is the max position that we are going to clamp the player. And this bad boy here, that's why we make a serialized field float type value of max x. So let's head back first to our Unity, and we're gonna select the player. We're gonna input a max x value. So to do that, you're just gonna grab here. If you want the player to be clamped at this position, so negatives, it will appear negative since it is on the left side of the x-axis, and positive on the right side of the x-axis. So I just want it to be equal. So if this is negative 4.76, so the clamp value here at the right side will just make this positive. Okay, so there you have it. But if you want it to extend it further here, so you can add a value 6.61. Let's try to make this negative. Okay, I killed that. I guess that will work. So we will have a value of 6.61, positive, negative 6.61. So in the max x, we're just gonna have, or we're gonna input 6.61. So let's head back to our code. So float max pose is equal to math function. You're just gonna have math and f. So the value of that, if you're going to hover your mouse, so math f is a function collection of common math functions in the Unity. Math f dot clamp. We're gonna clamp a game object or any value to it. So we have the math clamp, the float value, and the float minimum value, which we stored there, the 6.61 float value, the minimum and the maximum value. So first, let's comply the float value. So in the we're gonna use it in the x-axis. So we're just gonna have to type transform dot position dot x and comma the maximum value. So the float max x, since it is serialized field, and we store a value of 6.61. So for the positive value, for the negative value, let's have first the negative value. So we will just write negative max x, comma, that's going to be the minimum here at this side, and the maximum will be right here on the right side. So comma, we're just gonna remove the negative to make it positive. So positive max x, and right there. So you have negative max x, negative 6.61, and the positive 6.61. And then we're gonna rewrite again transform that position. So max pose, transform that position that x, so is equal new vector 3, and we're gonna store or use the value stored in the max pose. So whenever we move the position or of this game object, it will be clamped depending on the value that we have is stored in it. So use the max pose, and on the Y we're not gonna move anything on the Y, so transform that position dot Y, and on the Z transform that position dot Z, and the semicolon. So to read this code, first we're gonna move the player in the x-axis, in the horizontal axis, times the player move speed and the time, that delta time. And then in our let me read it again. First we have stored the value of horizontal axis in the move x. Then we're gonna change the position of that game object corresponding to the horizontal axis, which we just have stored here in the move x. That's why we put a new vector 3 in the x value, the move x. Then we stored again another value which will clamp the game object at the given minimum value and the maximum value. And then whenever we change the position, transform the position, we will be accessing the value max pose, which has the clamp or the mat clamp function. And anything in the position Y is just the default, and also in the position Z. So hit Ctrl S, and let's see if the code will work. Hopefully. And it will work. It will work. It should clamp at the value. Okay. So there you have it. No matter how strong or how long I press the right key, it will not move further to the right, since we already have the value of 6.61, and it will be clamped there. And in the left also it will be clamped. So now your player catcher will not exceed its movement on the screen. So that's it for this video. See ya in the next one. So you have there the player move. You can move the player horizontally.